this is a nothing. Yes, did they play perfect? No, they still win. Yes.
What are you doing if the Celtics win the championship?
If the Celtics win championship, I might break my sobriety. I might act up.
We did it! You got him.
All the way.
Celtics versus Heat. Celtics in what?
4.
Celtics versus Knicks. Celtics in
4.
Got Celtics in 4? Hell yeah.
Use a vocab word from a couple years ago. It's mind-boggling.
That's it, GOG. Let's go. What do you think tonight?
You think I'm worried about the Warriors? I ain't worried about the
Let's go, baby. 18, baby. Load up the boat.
Why would you say that?
Because
I'm not, no,
recently he's putting up games like
above our head for the players.
literally right now.
But I think when Marcus, especially Marcus, when he got traded, I think that was a wake-up call.
You think right now
Rob,
it's still New York?
I do.
And when I think of the Celtics dynasty, honestly, one of the first names that comes to my mind is actually Brad Stevens.
Whew. Take a deep breath of fresh air, guys.
That's a W right there. That's how we do it.
Yes.
40 points.
Oh, yes. It feels a little bit better, these types of shows. But, guys, welcome back into the Celtics Talk Weekly post-game show. I'm your host, Rob Etain. Joining with me are my two co-hosts, Seamus Darlingo and Brendan Cox. Guys, today, the Celtics, they start their 4-game Western Conference road trip. Although they're out west in California for the next couple of days, guys. Tonight, the Celtics, well, they won 125-85, guys. Complete domination out there in the Bay Area. 2022 finals rematch. Anytime we see these guys in blue, it feels good to get a win, especially a win like this, guys. Obviously, the Celtics coming off of yet another brutal loss at home against the Atlanta Hawks. Some pressure, some questions have been asked floating around the Celtics sphere. What's going wrong? The Celtics maybe answered the call tonight, guys, yet again. However, I will say this before we get started, guys. We have seen this a lot. We have seen this trend from Boston. So this post-game show, I'm curious to hear kind of where you guys are at within the Celtics organization and this team. But before we get started, guys, the initial drill, our initial thoughts, reactions, and takeaways from what was a very impressive 40-point win from the Celtics.
It's weird to say that a 40-point win is a bit annoying, but that's kind of how it is right now for the Boston Celtics. With the other night, of course, coming at the Garden, the Celtics blow out the Orlando Magic, and we went on postgame thinking maybe a turning point on the horizon here, maybe a future turning point. And then the Celtics go and suffer yet another horrendous loss to the Atlanta Hawks in overtime on Saturday, of course. And now we're sitting here with a 40-point win, and I guess we have to say it again. Could this be another turning point? Could the Magic game actually be a turning point? I thought during the Hawks game, I know we came in here and ranted on postgame, but at the same time, I was thinking, maybe we can break out a nice, good West Coast road trip, and maybe that Atlanta Hawks game, we look back and go, well, we did have that game in hand, but we just couldn't get all the details in a row down the stretch, and we just lose that one in overtime. That's what I'm hoping for is the case with the Celtics right now, because really the last horrendous game was against Toronto. That was still 3 games ago, and we're still getting past that. But at this point in time, the last 3 games, if you really look at them, it's been a different tone for the Boston Celtics, and especially the Magic game, especially tonight, beating the Warriors by 40, and it's really on both ends of the floor, offensively and defensively for the Celtics. You see 125 on the board for the Celtics tonight, but then you look at the other side, 85 for the Golden State Warriors, and the Warriors, they only had 39 points at halftime. That was on par with that Raptors game earlier that we played on New Year's Eve, and then, of course, not the Raptors game in Toronto. We all know what happened there. Now, that's going to be the new one that's mentioned. Oh, the Toronto game, the Toronto game, the Toronto game.
OKC Thunder.
But ultimately, too, the Celtics in that third quarter, what you like to see out of this game is the Celtics winning at halftime up 15. But in that third quarter, they put up 43 points on the board, which is almost as much as they put up in the first half, which was 54. And that was pretty much the end of the game. From there on out, the Celtics came out strong, continued what they were doing well in the first half. And really, the fourth quarter was just a nice little rest period for all the starters. Jason Tatum didn't play the entirety of the fourth quarter. And that's what you like to see when you're on the first game of a West Coast road trip, particularly in this game, because this was supposed to be one of the tougher games on the West Coast road trip against the Warriors on MLK Day, a weird start time with the Celtics. And you really go out and dominate this game, you get some rest time, and now you look ahead at the next 3 games on the trip. The next 2 games will be both in Los Angeles, so the Celtics will theoretically, well, not theoretically, they realistically will not travel between those games at all, other than 30 minutes from one arena to the next, as the Clippers and Lakers no longer play in the same arena. That'll be the Celtics' first game in the Intuit Dome this season. And then, of course, after that, rounding out the West Coast road trip. Who are we rounding it out against? Let's see. Can't remember the next team.
Sacramento?
Sacramento, I believe.
Is it Sacramento?
It might not be actually. It might not be till March.
This is
I don't
terrible. We
remember
should
that.
know this information. It's like I had it in my brain. I'm like, don't bring it up, don't bring it up. And I'm
One
like,
game at a time.
Bring it up anyway.
I got
Bring it up
Dallas.
anyway.
Finals rematch, Dallas.
Oh,
Okay,
yes.
there we
Okay,
go.
I knew there was another tough game
Must
on the
see
schedule.
TV.
It's the Dallas game, of course, the finals rematch. I knew there was a big game. When you guys said Sacramento, I was thinking, is that our big game on
I thought
TNT?
because like the
Every time we share
California
about that?
games or whatever it was too.
That's what I was with you there.
But
I
that's
thought.
not till March. I think it's like when like the Utah trip comes up or like the Portland trip, whatever it was. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Well, there we go. Dallas, we got there.
Yeah. I mean, the Celtics, to start it out this way is certainly optimistic. And look at the last 3 games. Hawks game was terrible. But if you win the Hawks game down the stretch, that's 3 straight wins for the Boston Celtics. And we still want to put those building blocks ahead, but we're going to have to see this game after game. And we cannot come back in here again and say, oh, we fumbled the details down the stretch, or, oh, we just didn't play a full 48 minutes of basketball. No, we should play this way every single night. And I know we're not going to be able to play this way because really the Warriors, they were missing a couple key players tonight. Draymond Green, the most notable starter missing for the Golden State Warriors. But regardless, the Celtics, this is what we know they're capable of. This is what we know they're able to do. And really right now, they'll do it every other game, but it's just about doing it every single game. And that's really what we need to see out of the Celtics moving forward. And nights like tonight, it's weird to say a 40-point win is a little annoying, but it's kind of where we are with the Celtics right now. We want to see this consistently and not just every other game.
Right.
Yeah. At this point in time right now, I mean, good win, all around win, obviously, but there's not going to be a game for a while, I feel like, until we really get back on track where I can, I don't know what to expect, like the next game, like after tonight's win, like, I don't know, like, I just don't want to be sitting here again, like talking like, oh, now they just fell short of the Clippers on Wednesday. It's like, yeah, I don't want that to happen again. But like, the way that they're playing this year, I don't know like what the following game after a win would be like, just because of like the way that they've lacked the consistency with, all sorts of struggles. But I mean, listen, tonight was a good win. Obviously, Warriors are really like in the top 8 right now in their conference. So, I mean, they didn't have Draymond Green, so it was just worthy of, trying to get around the other guys too. And, I mean, they did a good all around job stopping them. So, I mean, I'm just glad that to start off this trip, we got rid of the easy part, I feel like. But, the Celtics in my mind, I just don't know. Like, I can't really like, I want to say like figure out what their following game will be like. I don't know if they can get back on a winning streak.
Right, exactly. That's kind of the question. That's where I'm at too. I thought tonight was great, right? Again, and we know they can do this. That's not a surprise, right? This isn't the surprising part of the Celtics seasons. Aren't the wins like this? They're the losses. So, I agree with both of you. I thought tonight was a great start to the road trip. Defensively, Seamus, I'm on par with you, man. I mean, they were great defensively. This is the brand you kind of want to see them play when they're struggling offensively, is hold it down on the defensive end, right? It's okay if your shot's not falling. If you hunker down and play some strong defense, you're going to be in there. You'll be in the game every time. Tonight they did that, and offensively it was flowing. They took advantage. They did that killaware offense. We saw, Brown attack Steph Curry a lot, Schroeder a lot of action towards there. So I really, really did like the Celtics' intentions tonight. But again, kind of going back to Brendan's point, I agree. We don't know what to expect. So it's going to take a little bit for this team to kind of, our expectations to get back to, okay, we know what we're going to get with this team. So as for tonight, very satisfied, right? Yeah, anytime you can beat a team, get a win, let alone a 40-point win, right? It's a good feeling. So great game tonight by Boston. I want to see them continue to get together on the defensive end of the floor this West Coast trip. I really think that's where their mindset needs to be moving forward, guys. Defensively, how can they bring it every single night?
Well, that's what's been slipping up too over this recent stretch, because the effort, when we talk about the effort of the Boston Celtics really in December and January, where the effort is going to show the most is on the defensive end of the floor. Because if you're not rotating crisply on that end, if you're not together as a complete unit, you're going to slip entirely defensively. And that's really been the case for the Boston Celtics. And that it is a little bit weird of a point that this year they've gone away from that because last year it did feel like at times, oh, the shot wasn't falling, and they would somewhat lean on their defensive prowess in order to get the job done on some occasions. And this year, just it's been few and far between. It's been kind of a phrase with this team lately. I know they're 10 and well now they're actually 11-9 in their last 20 games. So hey, we're above that 500 mark in our last 20 games. Some optimism there. But regardless, the defensive end of the floor is really something that we've seen this year be completely uncharacteristic for the Boston Celtics. And it really goes along with their effort problems because I believe if you're not owning any effort out on the basketball court, the defensive end of the floor is where it's going to show the most. Offensively, you can sometimes get by hitting terrible shots. You can sometimes get by getting to the free throw line. You can put points up on the board with sometimes not always putting in the best effort on that end. But then defensively, if you're not really giving the correct intensity, other teams are just going to walk it right down to the rim on you, and they're going to score easy buckets. They're going to find easy buckets on the perimeter. And that's what we've been really seeing out of the Celtics and their opponent as of late. Yet tonight, it's a completely different tone out of the Celtics. And this is where I believe that maybe even that Hawks game that went down, we lost in overtime. The last three games have been extremely more optimistic from a defensive standpoint for the Boston Celtics, especially the Orlando game and this game tonight against the Golden State Warriors. The Celtics really locked down in both of those games, held their opponent under 100 points. And even in that Hawks game, I felt like there were moments in which they did that. Now they went away from that at points in the game. But even that game, you go, oh, poor Porzingis, oh, Horford. You can talk yourself into a couple perspectives that we're not necessarily giving this team excuses at this point in time. We just cannot with how this team has been playing.
Right.
But even the last three games, I think, even the Atlanta game, there's more intensity involved in that game than there was in Toronto and the Pelicans game and the Kings game. That was really the worst 3-game stretch of the season against Sacramento, against New Orleans, against Toronto. Those are three opponents the Celtics 100% should beat. They went 1-2 against and nearly went 0-3. And really the intensity on both ends of the floor was not there whatsoever. But now they respond with a 3-game stretch where they go 2-1. It's not completely satisfactory because of that Atlanta loss, but really those other two wins. It's what we want to see more of, is really that Celtics team that just can go really almost wire to wire and just dominate an opponent. Dominate, not just win, dominate.
Right.
That's what's frustrating about this year's Celtics teams, that we know they can just dominate, not just win, dominate, and they can barely win on some occasions.
I think for me, and I want to say I've said this before, probably because again, a lot of what we've seen recently, it's been recycled. Oh, they're dark great. Oh, they're terrible, right? But like, I think tonight, what they did a really good job with was executing on both ends of the floor throughout 48 minutes, right? Kind of like what you just said, right? We saw the offense was clicking alongside the defense. It wasn't the first quarter was the offense, the second quarter was the defense, the third, right? You know, we've seen a lot of flip-flopping recently, especially against Atlanta, right? They came out, offense was going, okay, second quarter, now it's not, right? So tonight, I think Boston, they did a great job at, again, extending the lead, playing good on both ends of the floor, guys. That brings us in to our lead tracker. Almost, someone let Justin know, almost a wire-to-wire win, guys. 45, the biggest lead, obviously, for Boston, the largest lead for those measly Golden State Warriors, guys. I say measly because they have been struggling as of late here in the second half of the year. Biggest lead, 2 for them, guys. It was all Celtics. And again, we saw this against Orlando just 2 games ago, guys. This trend that we see here on this lead tracker tonight, it is green trending upwards towards Boston. As the game prolongs, the lead extends, guys. Just how important is that for Boston moving forward to continue to extend their leads, because they have not been able to consistently do that?
Yeah, I think we saw tonight where it was, we kind of had like going like in the first quarter 8-0, and then Warriors just climb right back up in the first quarter. They climb back up like to make it like I think like 11-2 run or whatever. But tonight was an example of that. We can obviously maintain these leads because that's what we need to do if we want to keep winning more games. Because it's just because like they gotta win more games in a way of doing this, because we're used to just seeing them get blowout wins. But I mean, I don't care at this point if it's a blowout win or if it's just like a neck and neck game. It's like they got to maintain, keeping the Warriors down shooting or whoever they're up against still. But tonight was just a way, I think, for us to get back on track with, kind of getting those big margin wins and, keeping our momentum going in intensity.
Well, honestly, the Celtics team in this recent stretch here, what they've been doing, I really believe that this team at this point in time, now we've said it on other post games in the past that this point in the season, and Rob, you kind of mentioned it in the group chat that is it the body language right now? Is it a little off with this team? Is what exactly? There's a weird energy with the Celtics team in its entirety right now, and I will say from game to game it can wane a lot. But on a night like tonight, it just felt like going across the coast. Maybe the warmth, the cold has something to do with it. A lot colder in Boston than it is in San Francisco right now, of course. But it just feels like the team has not really been there as a collective unit. They haven't wanted to be there. It's not, and it's really not as if they're just failing on that. It feels like they don't want to be at times. That's really the conversation of body language when we talk about the Boston Celtics. And really, the effort out of the Celtics team, we're just going to keep harping on it. We need to see more of it moving forward because that is after this team. We want to stress this very deeply is that this year's team is nearly the exact same as last year's team. Nearly the exact same. It's what minus O'Shea, Brissett, and Svi Mykhailiuk plus Baylor Shireman and I think we have 14 play. I think we have a standard spot open right now. So you're talking minus Brissett and Mykhailiuk plus Shireman. Those players never got any minutes. It's like this team is the exact same as the team who just put up the 8th best record in NBA history, went 80-21 in 101 games, blew their way past everybody going towards the finals, and really left no doubt in that final series of who was going to come out victorious in the end. And yet now it's like, wow, we can't even win consistently. We can't even play consistent games. And there's no other thing you can look at other than the want of the team. Because yeah, you could say, teams figured them out. Oh, are they running different sets in which are not really bringing them as much success? Are they running different rotations that aren't bringing them as much success? But all these little factors, at the end of the day, it's the same players going out there playing basketball. It just is. And they played basketball for 101 games last year, came out with an 80-21 record. And this season, they've really, what's very stark is last year, right? If you go back to last year, and Franco comes out of the rafters. Here comes Franco.
My goodness.
Here comes Franco.
I know you're going to come out of the blue at some point, so.
That's my whole niche around here. That's my whole stick.
We gotta get like a swinging in effect or something like Spider-Man. We gotta get something for that. Like we have those like YouTube transitions where it just like flips around and it's just like Franco being thrown into the screen real quick. Like StreamYard, StreamYard, get on that.
I vote crickets.
Give me my own like Randy Orton. We have that. I need my own like Randy Orton entrance, but we do have the crickets.
He's the Chris Stops of the show.
The hood is a good feature, I will say. They're coming into the hood. Pretty good.
What are we talking about? Maybe a 40-point win from the Celtics tonight?
I would say that's definitely what we're in the middle of right now.
Something about that? Yeah, I think they did a fantastic job tonight. Defense is going to win this championship if they do make that push. And also, they're being able to score within the paint tonight was the benefactor of tonight's game. Being able to, when the 3-point shots not falling in the first half, being able to make up for that for paint scoring, being able to get those looks that you're looking for, being able to take advantage of the smaller guards, Curry, Buddy Hield, and Gary Payton. I think they did a good job of taking full advantage of that. Chris JB, Jason Tatum, and it was one of the more well-rounded scoring games we've seen from the team so far, just to give my initial thoughts as I join in.
To finish up my point on the Celtics was yesterday was the 1-year anniversary of the Celtics versus Nuggets game at the TD Garden, where the Celtics 20-0 record, I really want to say win streak, 20-game win streak, and I believe it actually, it didn't extend into that season prior because we lost to the Miami Heat in Game 7, so forget that. But it was a 20-game win streak at home. The Celtics were 20-0, and yesterday, 1 year ago, today, or yesterday, that is, 1 year ago today, we were the day afterwards, of course, the Nuggets beat the Celtics on their home floor, giving them a 20-1 record. And from that standpoint, it's a little odd sitting here this season going, wow, okay, the Celtics, they're 15-8 at home this season. So they're not even anywhere close to that mark of where they were last year. It just felt like it was continual dominance from the Celtics team last year. I know that was more of a homestead and we're on the road tonight, but it kind of paints a picture of how the Celtics were gliding last year and how the Celtics are just kind of sputtering along this season. And really, so far, I believe, number one, there's a lot more basketball to be played. But even at this point in the season, we can kind of get a little caught up on like what we've seen so far out of the Celtics team in terms of just it's January, it's December. There was the end of October. There's November. There's December, and now there's January. And yet there's still a lot of basketball left to be played. And even so, the Celtics have been playing horrible up to this point in the season of going back and forth, back and forth. There's still a lot of time in front of them to actually turn this ship around. And right now, I don't want to say this is the start of the Celtics doing better things in terms of building better habits. But at the same time, you would expect there to be a little bit of a ramp up going into February and even the end of February into March. That's still a month away. But at this point last season, the Celtics were just gliding along, gliding along, gliding along. And yet there was still a lot of season left to be played. There were still a lot of home games to be played. There were still a lot of games, period, left to be played. And we only suffered our first loss at this point last year. And so far this year, we just really haven't been on that same mark of dominance. But my point with all of this is there's still a lot of basketball left to be played. And even at that point last year, it felt like it was early in the season when that happened. It felt like, 20-0 at home felt early in the season. And that was still only a year ago today or yesterday, almost today.
And you know what? If I can recall correctly, guys, a year ago yesterday, right, when the Celtics did lose that game to Denver at home, there were a lot of questions spiraling around with the Celtics and their ability to beat the reigning champion Denver Nuggets, their ability to execute in big games. And the big question was, can this team do what they had been doing in the regular season come playoff time? You know, they had a moniker around them of playoff chokers. And, you know, they came and with the rest of the year, they played well, and entering the playoffs, they answered that question. So if there is a positive to take out of what the Celtics have done, it's look at the narratives that in the questions that they needed to be answered last season, where the season prior to what Boston is doing now, their championship run, it was such a pressure cooker, guys. I mean, they had just traded Marcus Smart. It felt extremely do or die. You're 8 for Brown, you're 7 for Tatum. It felt like if it wasn't last year, it was never going to happen. And Boston played with this extreme attention to details and energy every single game, like it was the NBA Finals. And eventually that just became a locomotive and the talent display. So my point being with this team is that, right, like currently this is the same Celtics roster. They had the same point of the year last year. And I still think this ship can still sail into the playoffs and win a championship. I do think that's still within the realm of possibility for these guys. You know, I agree, Seamus. There's a lot of basketball to be played. And I think, you know, just like there were questions last year in that loss to Denver, there are still questions this year. And, you know, I think these guys are going to get up. I think they are going to get ready. I think tonight was, again, a great building block. I hate to use that phrase again, building block, but I'm going to have to. And, you know, I'm excited to see what they're going to be able to do moving forward. Now, you know, for me, we talk about defense, you know, the defensive end of the floor. So we understand how hard it is. And my second point here I want to make, guys, in reference to last year's team in that Denver game. Yes, the league got better. Yes, the league adapts, right? But this isn't some magic. The Celtics or the league has figured Boston out, and the Celtics are like, you know, their code's been cracked. Like, I hate to break it to you, but what made the Boston Celtics and what makes them so good isn't their X's and O's. It's their talent dispersity, right? You know, this isn't like some team that has figured out like the secret twist to basketball to win games so efficiently. No, they're a really talented basketball team, and they still are a really talented basketball team. So, yes, while you may think teams have figured Boston out, no, if you look at it, Celtics are relaxed right now, very relaxed. Last year at this time, the Celtics were playing the defending NBA champions, Denver Nuggets. They were in a pressure cooker. The heart and soul was traded. It felt like if they didn't win it in 2024, then everything was gone. And Celtics had to almost hit the restart button. That's what the vibes in the locker room were. The vibes in the locker room right now, it's January. The defending NBA champions. They need to figure out how to wake up for these games because these games are still important. However, again, there was a lot to play for and a lot to figure out last year at this time. And guess what, guys? Fast forward a year, there's still a lot to figure out. There's still a lot to play for at this time. So there are questions that need to be answered, guys. And I think Boston, I do think they will answer those questions. Because again, we can see performances like this. Their talent, it's still there, guys. I hate to break it to you. The league hasn't figured out the Boston Celtics because there's nothing to figure out. They're just more talented than you. Plain and simple.
Yeah, unfortunately, too, I will say, oh man, I don't want to take shots out here, but you say we're not a particularly dominant X's and O's team. From that really isn't the Celtics' strength, and it really hasn't been the last
Not
2.5 seasons when a particular
That's
person
fair,
took over head coach. And that's just how it's been with the Boston Celtics. Is they're more derived on their efficiency of where their shots come from. Of course, as you said, their talent and where it comes from on the floor as well. Just from Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, you have two elite wings, but then you have one of the best centers in the NBA, and you also have arguably the best guard rotation in the entire NBA with Pritchard, Holiday, and White as well. And the Celtics team at this point in the season, it is a little this really looking at the conversation from last year compared to this year, it is just very interesting from the standpoint of last year. There was a lot more. I mean, obviously, with the record and how the team was just flowing along last year, a little bit more fun chasing the title. Now it feels like, okay, we've surpassed that point. Well, now it's at the hard stage of, okay, now that we've surpassed the point of doing what was thought to be impossible for the Celtics team at one point in time, winning a championship. I shouldn't say impossible, but just like one of the toughest mountains to climb. We realize that an even tougher mountain to climb is when you win that championship. You have to come back the next season or seasons and really somehow find that same hunger within yourselves or within the Celtics, of course, within the locker room there, because at this point in the season, we really have not seen it game to game. And then on a game like tonight, or an occasion like tonight, the Celtics go out there against the Golden State Warriors. They come to play. They, of course, are super aggressive in their play style tonight. As Franco mentioned, the three ball wasn't falling early, yet they were still able to go down inside the paint, really win the paint battle, and get themselves some easy buckets. That's really what the Celtics need to do ultimately to actually get themselves back into a rhythm. The 3-point shooting has been putrid in the last month and a half, and really how you're going to fix that is number one, what we were talking about earlier, and what we're still talking about is on the defensive side of things, not allowing your opponent to go out there and light you up from the floor, wherever that may be. But it's also about getting easy buckets. The Celtics, that's what was so frustrating against the Atlanta Hawks, is it felt like they actually did create a lot of those easy buckets for themselves. And it felt like later in the game, they kind of went away from that a little bit. Cornette, not out there at the end of the fourth quarter. Oh, not out there at the end of overtime. And it all had to do with Luke Cornette and the rest of the team. But at the same time, the Celtics, they know what they need to do in order to win basketball games consistently and at a dominant level. Yet, for some reason, they go away from doing those things. They just don't want to do those things at this point in the season. That's where you just realize it's a lot harder for a defending championship level squad to actually build up that hunger than where it was last season, because last season, I think the pressure on the team actually created a lot of that hunger. And now, since everybody's been awarded, everybody got their ring, everybody saw the banner go up, it's like, it's December, it's January. Oh, the playoffs are still far, far away. But before we know it, the playoffs will be right around the corner, and the Celtics cannot be continuing their recent streak, their recent streak when that happens, when that time frame happens. And ultimately, right now, we are still in a good spot. I will say Reggie Miller was even kind of rationalizing it at the end of the broadcast, saying, probably not going to catch Cleveland, but someone's probably not going to catch you from behind if you're the Boston Celtics. So it's really right now, it's about just maintaining that 2 seed and going ahead and playing the best basketball possible and playing the best basketball possible going into the playoffs, because that's all the Celtics can do. They can't go on this crazy run and go run for the number one. They can technically, I should say, and they could, but at the same time, it's really just about playing well. It's about playing well. That's all the Celtics can do. There's not this major, like you said, Rob. It's not like, oh, the league has just figured the Celtics X's and O's out, because the Celtics, they've never been strong from an X's and O's standpoint. We've been conversing about Joe Mazzulla for 2.5 seasons now. Can he make this adjustment here? Can he make this adjustment there? And
Last year was awful.
I mean, you want to give credit to Joe Mazzulla because he's gotten better, but at the same time, we still critique him and still question him a lot. So from that standpoint, it's never as if the Celtics have been really that strong from that side of things. So it has more to do with the Celtics, really the point here, about them internally at this point in time than it does externally with everybody else. The Celtics, they're as talented as any other team in the league, as dominant as any other team in the league, and it's just about what the Celtics need to muster up internally in order to transpire that out into the world, because if they don't, it's not the Raptors, it's not the Pelicans, it's not the Kings, it is the Celtics. It is the Celtics, and that's what it is.
Well, guys, let's take a look tonight at, the highlight man, the guy that has been on top of our screen so much. And he did it again tonight. And again, it was a weird one, I think, picking the player spotlight, because this was a 2024 vibe game. There wasn't a clear guy. I mean, Jason Tatum, however, I will say he was the SeatGeek player of the game tonight, guys. But it was a team effort, without a doubt. In Tatum, he used his teammates very well tonight, guys. But before we talk about Jason Tatum and his play, I do want to give a quick shout out to the sponsor of the post-game show this year, guys, SeatGeek. SeatGeek is the best ticketing app out there on the market, guys. They have you covered for every live event they have to offer, guys. Now,
wait, we have to disclaim this real quick. Sorry to interrupt the ad read. Versus the Warriors.
Oh my God, no. Oh my God.
It's okay. We beat the Magic just as badly as the Warriors. But go ahead with the ad read. I was just like Justin, just going in on the ad read. Like I should have finished the ad read.
No. If you're new here, I am in charge of the player spotlight, and I have a severe problem at changing that little. I did the date today. The date's usually my problem. But that third row, that third line kills me every single time. However, guys, a quick shout out to SeatGeek. Thank you for sponsoring this video, guys. Use code Celtics Weekly for $20 off your first purchase, guys. You can find the link to SeatGeek down below in our description. It's that top link right there, guys. Again, huge shout out to SeatGeek. Again, Jason Tatum against the Warriors, not the Magic. My apologies to you guys there. 22 points, 9 rebounds, 7 assists, teetered around a triple-double, 9 of 20 from behind the arc. He managed to grab and steal 2 times on the game, guys. A plus 28 plus minus for Jason Tatum. We talk about how big he's been, and we talk about his big games, and there's been a lot of big games from Jason Tatum this year. But, guys, tonight it felt like JT was just able to control the game and let the game be played at his pace. And we say all the time that that's when the Celtics are operating at their best, is just when Jason Tatum has control. Maybe he's not scoring 40, but he has control of the game. He's playmaking, he's rebounding, he's making plays defensively. Tonight he did that, guys. Just how big has Jason Tatum been and was tonight for the Celtics?
I think from one standpoint, he's definitely the best statistic player, not just scoring wise, but rebounding and passing definitely on the team from this season at least, and a little bit of last year as well too. So when he has those games like tonight, like, nearing a triple double, or he gets a double double, because some nights you'll just see him rack up 20 points and 10 rebounds, etc. And he's actually just getting more comfortable shooting the ball too. So it's good to just see him kind of just getting a slow pace with that. I think if we want to get this, I don't want to keep saying building block like we were talking about though, but it needs to come from Tatum's stats like that tonight. Right. Will help us kind of get this little road trip going. So I think tonight was a good start for that.
I went insane during last night's post-game show saying the word consistency and building blocks. If you go to the final 5 minutes of the show, I walked off into the middle of nowhere, just repeating the word consistency, building blocks, stepping stones. And I think that tonight was definitely one, and I'm going to drive myself up the wall saying it, but this is the type of performance you need to see out of Jason Tatum, and we have been seeing out of Jason Tatum, which is why with the team's lack of success this season, Jason Tatum is still one of the contenders for the MVP category. It's being able to make sure that the players around him are being able to play to the level that they are capable of. And tonight he was able to show that. Obviously, being able to get that confidence from him in scoring tonight, being able to contribute on the defensive end against the Warriors' wings. It was a major benefactor for tonight's game. And like we were talking about, the espionage of talent around him just makes it so easy for the game to open up for him. He's able to find the looks that he wants to find, and if he doesn't find the look, he has someone that can find the look for him. He's going to continue to grow as a facilitator, as we've seen he stepped up into a major role in the playmaking category. As of this year, the focus on the defensive end for other teams has completely shifted over to how do we stop Jason Tatum, not how do we stop the Boston Celtics. And when he's able to have performances like this team is incredibly hard to stop.
Well, it felt like this was the revenge game that we all wanted out of Jason Tatum and the Boston Celtics earlier this season when the Celtics faced the Warriors at the TD Garden. Everybody was talking about much closer to the Olympics at that point in time in terms of the time frame. Everybody was talking about, oh, Jason Tatum revenge game, 0 minutes off the bench in the Olympics versus Steve Kerr and the Warriors in this game. And then the Celtics, of course, come out and drop that game, and nobody really particularly looked amazing in that performance. That was that was the second loss of the season for the Boston Celtics. And really, I just want to disclaim this too. Going back, or I shouldn't say disclaim, but just give this perspective. Tonight, felt like we were in a matchup of two teams who really cannot gain their own consistency right now. I know the Celtics record is much better. And Franco, I know you mentioned we haven't been having that great of a season, but we're still 30-13 on the year. It's like we're still all right. We're still 17 games over 500. We don't want to be teetering around in that 500 range as we have been lately, as that will, of course, bear it out into fruition that yeah, we're closer to 500 than not over 500 if we continuously do that over time. But at the same time, we're still 30-13 on the season. But back during that game earlier in November, felt like two teams that could potentially make the NBA finals and face off in a finals rematch from 2022. The Warriors came out hot, the Celtics came out hot, and yet now it's two teams who just cannot really gain their consistency whatsoever. And really, back that kind of goes back on the point. I'm going to talk more about Jason Tatum here in a minute, but it goes back on the point of how there's still a lot of basketball to be played in the season. And there's a lot of years where we look at November, December, January, and we start making assumptions about what teams will look like later on in the season, where they can go and where they can't go. It's just a reminder that there's still a lot of basketball to be played, and really there's going to be different results that play out all over the board. If anybody remembers, the Clippers were contenders at this point in the season last year. They went into the first round, got smacked by the Dallas Mavericks, who everybody thought at this point could not make a stop to make it through 4 rounds. And of course, we saw the Dallas Mavericks in the NBA Finals. So a lot can happen. Of course, a lot has already happened this season. Thought these two teams were contenders. Now they're just kind of, the Celtics are still contenders, but the Warriors, we send them back down to 500 tonight, 21-21. But in terms of what Jason Tatum did tonight, it was definitely the game that most expected back in November, but really got in January. And you see the 22 points. Don't let that be too deceiving, because really, if Jason Tatum played in this fourth quarter, he would have had over 30 points. That was just how the game was going for JT, and he didn't need to score 30 points tonight, because you look at the discrepancy in the score, 40-point game for the Boston Celtics, but it was really an all-around game for Jason Tatum. And we talked about this the other night on Postgame, that he is a tone setter of the Boston Celtics, him and Jaylen Brown. And that's what I felt like he came out with tonight, was that tone-setting energy in a positive way on the floor. You saw he was being aggressive early, scoring early, and of course dishing out those assists to others. And the 9 of 20 shooting line, the 9 of 20 is always ugly because it looks like he had a terrible performance. It was really close to a 50% clip for the night for Jason Tatum. So this was, of course, not his most dominant stat line we'll ever see on the season, but really the way he played throughout this game and even to really start the game is what set the tone for the Celtics and what set the tone for the rest of the way for the Boston Celtics. And it's the same conversation with Jason Tatum almost every single game is he is going to be that player for the Boston Celtics that if he comes out and he's playing as dominant as he can, the team, those are really the nights in which we can see these type of performances. And if he's anything lesser than that or really below that, which we really have not seen much this season at all, that's when the team is going to struggle. And it's the same conversation with other stars as well. But Jason Tatum, particularly with the Boston Celtics, he's their best player. And he showed that yet again tonight. And yeah, Rob, I would definitely agree. This was definitely more like a 23-24 type performance. Player of the game. It's like, we could give it to multiple players, but Jason Tatum certainly deserves it with his performance tonight.
If there's one guy I'm never going to worry about because I know he'll be there, is Jason Tatum. I mean, the dude has his resume speaks for itself. His performance in big games speaks for himself, and he has been Mr. Consistent for the Celtics this season. He's been great, and he was great tonight. Guys, for me, you can so easily get lost in the Jason Tatum big point games, right? The 40-point games, the 30-point games, the 50s. Those assist numbers have really been stacking up this year. We see him consistently teetering around that 7 assist mark. However, for me, the telltale sign whether or not Jason Tatum is engaged is that rebounding in that steals number. Because that tells me if Jason Tatum was active on the defensive end of the floor, because we know how great of a rebounder he can be. But the funny thing is, rebounding is a real effort thing, right? You can be a great rebounder as a guard at 6 feet, as long as you've got a nose and a knack for that basketball. Tonight, we look 2 steals, 9 rebounds for Jason Tatum. So for me, that tells me he was engaged, he was active, he was there tonight, he was present. Seamus, you obviously alluded to that lingering matchup against Steve Kerr, that head coach of the 2024 Olympic team where Jason Tatum didn't see any time. Tonight, he got his revenge. It was great. It was exactly what you want it to be. Actually, it was funny enough. I was just watching on Twitter a clip of Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown after the game, after the final buzzer, talking to Steph Curry. Steve Kerr comes up, looking to talk to both of them, and both of them look at him and are like, "Oh, we're good, man. You can keep it going." And Steve Kerr walks right past him after standing there waiting for him. So again, a great bond from Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, a great game from Jason Tatum, guys. But I mean, again, you talk about it after what obviously Jaylen Brown had to go through this offseason with being kept off of Team USA after being Finals MVP and Eastern Conference Finals MVP, and Jason Tatum being an NBA champion, being the head of the engine that made us a locomotive of an offense run, getting 0 minutes at multiple times. So it feels good, guys, to see a win like this against, Steve Kerr and company. I'm not going to lie. It feels a little good.
Or like the 2015 NBA All-Star team more than he liked this year's All-Star team when he put Jason Tatum on the bench. He would rather play the players who are probably about to get their farewell tours within the next 2 or 3 years than the
Right.
up-and-coming rising stars, which is something that they can hold against them. And what it's like one day that Tatum will be that LeBron or that Steph Curry or Kevin Durant. I'm not saying in those accolades, but one day he'll get to that level of respect around the NBA where he is able to play in the Team USA games. But I think that it's going to be due much earlier for him. I think that he's going to be able to get that reputation amongst himself within the NBA. Especially, I was tuning in through the game, and Scal said something about the respect doesn't really come to the all-stars or the superstars of the NBA until they get that second ring. So that's why it's imperative for this team to really put it into fifth gear to get it to the back-to-back championship. And it all starts with building consistency right now. If you're going into we still have a lot of regular season left. We haven't even reached the All-Star break. But once the All-Star break hits, you don't want to have any questions about your team. You want to basically have a very set rotation. You want to know who you're going to be playing, what you're going to be playing, and when you're going to be playing them. And I think tonight did a good job, especially when you have a comfortable lead and margin like they did tonight for the fourth quarter, to be able to get those looks out of the Jordan Walshes and being able to get the looks out of him. Shout out Baylor Shireman.
Shadow
And
Baylor Shireman tonight.
G League
Justin's
legend.
he's
Yeah.
gonna join in about 5 minutes, Justin, but he's gonna pull a flu game just because we're giving him a shout out. But I think that he's going. A lot of these players are getting the reps that they deserve, and with the questions during the inconsistency, hey, can we rely on Hauser to play 15, 20 minutes a game? Can we rely on our two bigs to be able to fulfill the roles when Al Horford and Kristaps Porzingis are sitting out? Being able to see these guys produce in what we like to call garbage time minutes really is their opportunity to prove themselves. And hopefully we see a little bit more of that moving forward, especially heading into the double LA game.
Well, Franco, you mentioned with the postseason and all-star break, right? Something you really want to hone in on is knowing your rotations, knowing your opponent's rotations, right? But within the Celtics rotation, something I kind of clicked tonight was, listen, we're kind of getting some consistency here within our lineup. And, we understand Atlanta was the second night of a back-to-back, no Horford, no Porzingis. Sorry, it happens, right? It is what it is. That's kind of the effect you're going to get with the Celtics team. However, outside of that, guys, we have seen here kind of through the month of January, this team has been healthy, knock on wood, but they have had their rotation guys playing. And I don't know about you guys, but is it more important for the Celtics to be healthy come playoff time, or to be, and obviously you want both, right? Or to be playing, right, efficient basketball with guys in and out of the lineup?
Well, for me, it's kind of both. I mean,
Yeah.
you definitely want both, but
Right.
I think it's
Next man up, too.
it's hard to say one or the other if you were going to pick one or the other, because really you need to be going into the playoffs playing well, because really if you didn't have the health, I shouldn't say it's that hard to pick one or the other. I think you do want to be playing efficient basketball and consistent basketball going into the playoffs more than health sometimes, because we've seen with Celtics teams in the past, they haven't been exactly healthy going into the playoffs, yet they've been playing well and they actually went on nice little playoff runs. You think about 2022, Robert Williams not healthy going into the playoffs. Celtics still made the finals because they were on a hot streak. You think about 2018, Marcus Smart was not ready to go into the playoffs. Celtics still make the Eastern Conference Finals. He comes back during Game 5 in the first round against Milwaukee. So I would say typically it's there's more importance on playing consistent going into the playoffs than health, but the health factor is just as big, because if you don't have some of your key contributors, I don't understand why people, they look at the Celtics, they go, oh, they're so deep. The Celtics bench right now is actually not deep at all. Their top 6, 7 players, it's pretty deep if you really look at the starting lineup, sure. But then after that, it's like, Sam Hauser is playing horrifically. He had a better night tonight, but he's playing horrifically as of late. And then after that, you really look at guys like, okay, you have Cornette. He can give you what he gives you as a big guy. Same thing with Kata. Tillman, we haven't seen it all. We saw him in garbage time tonight. Congrats on Xavier Tillman for finally getting minutes. After that, you're talking about Walsh, Shireman, Springer. These are all guys that you want to see actually inserted into the lineup maybe a little bit more if you're the Boston Celtics here and there amongst their struggles. But ultimately, the team right now, as it's constructed, if you lose one of your top 6, if you're the Boston Celtics, or really top 5, there are going to be some players who are able to slot in and play well and maybe make up some of those minutes. Say if you lost a White or a Holiday, you'd still have Pritchard there off the bench. But realistically, it is a little thin. It's a little shallow off the bench for the Boston Celtics. So the health factor is going to be super huge. And that's not just with if we were to lose somebody, but that's just with everybody having the correct stamina to go and make a 4-round playoff run, because this Celtics team has played a lot of basketball in recent years. And the realistic fact of basketball is you get tired. You just do. If you play a lot of basketball, if you're playing really, 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 really hard, you're gonna get tired. You're running up and down the floor. There's a lot of running in the half court. There's a lot of sprinting, jumping. It's just a hard physical game to play. And so on one hand, yes, I think the consistency going into the playoffs is actually a little bit more important than health, but the health factor, it's really important from the standpoint of not losing somebody and then allowing the bench to take over, because there's really not a ton off the bench for the Boston Celtics if you look at it, but it's just about the whole team too being at their healthiest state, even if that doesn't include an injury. So that's kind of my take on that. Or it is my take, not kind of.
My take was I'll say this though. I want consistency. I obviously want to keep our 5 that we have like in the lineup. But the other day I was actually talking to somebody, and so I think a guy that we haven't really seen as consistent as of late, he's kind of getting a little bit back up there. With Derek White though, I thought that I had was maybe putting him on the bench for some time, because that's kind of how he was kind of starting with his role in Boston. And I mean, if you can put Peyton Pritchard in there to kind of maybe, like step away from the 6-man role and just, kind of show what he can bring to maybe get our starting lineup a little bit more fuel. Because I don't care about like the individual awards at the end of the day. I just want to win as many games as possible, because you want to make sure that you get our guys in for the playoffs, and you want to make sure that we get the momentum going, because like we were saying, the playoffs are like right around the corner too. And I want to just see, make sure our guys are healthy. Obviously that's number one. We all know that for a fact, but I want the consistency to just come from the players that shine. If guys aren't shining, then maybe Mazzola needs to be a little bit more strict with them and have them sit on the bench for a couple games, or maybe just, kind of come off the bench and see how their role fits better with that. But I mean, obviously not like Tatum, not Brown, but the other 3 are in question. But I think that we'll get to there at some point.
Right.
Yeah, I think the next man up mentality is going to be huge, especially where I don't want to talk about the hypotheticals of injury, but it is a part of the game. But being able to get those contributions from players that we look at championship teams from past, or really one of the biggest thorns in the side of the Celtics in recent years, probably not as much as this year as their roster is starting to fall apart. You look at the Miami Heat, they were able to always have a player who is ready to shine in the big moments, being able to fill in if there were injuries. I remember watching playoff games and being like, who the hell is Hayward Highsmith? And he would end up going off the bench and dropping 12 or 15 points.
Right.
And it's something that the Celtics have really done a great job of doing in their developmental, and being able to have these guys be ready for the moment. You look at performances from Drew Peterson earlier on this season. He is one of the more NBA ready G League players the Boston Celtics have right now. So, what happened to my camera?
Well, we have no idea what happened to Franco.
Oh,
no, I'm gone. Oh, there I am. Okay.
What happened to my camera?
All right. Well, while Franco figures that out,
that's oddly what happened to my stream during the game. It just cut out like that.
Cut out. It happens. Technical difficulties happen. But while Franco figures that out, I can give my 2 cents. I agree. Both are obviously very important. However, with this particular Celtics team, I'm going to say health is more important. And here's why I say that, as we can get Franco back. There we go. I say health is more important because this team really thins out when the health isn't there. And, obviously they made a run with Kristaps Porzingis out of the lineup just last season. They won the NBA championship with him only playing 3.5 playoff games. But I think this year in particular, I do want to see them healthy. With that being said, though, I mean, consistency by the playoffs and playing good basketball is extremely, extremely important. And I think that I will put that right as 1B. It's 1A and 1B. And, with that, Brendan, you mentioned something, Peyton Pritchard and his contributions. So, obviously tonight we are without Justin. He's sick. So I wouldn't touch these flowers if I were you guys. Peyton Pritchard, stay away from touching these. We don't want you sick, but we can give them to you virtually. All right. How about that? Guys, tonight, Justin's flowers, they are going out to Peyton Pritchard, guys. Now, we do want to give a quick shout out to the sponsor of this segment, Bucket Squad. Guys, we all love basketball. We all play basketball. And Bucket Squad, they have the best basketball apparel in the game, guys. Whether you are hooping, whether you are going to watch hoops, or whether you're just chilling around the house, guys, Bucket Squad, they have the best shorts, shirts, hoodies in the game, guys. Go to the second link in our description for code Celtics Talk Weekly to get 10% off every order there is. Guys, again, huge shout out to Bucket Squad. And again, guys, Peyton Pritchard, well, he was your Flowers winner tonight, or Justin's Flowers winner. 14 points, 2 rebounds, 9 assists for Pritchard off the bench, shooting 50% from the floor, 33% behind the arc, guys. Now, we talk about so much this year. Peyton Pritchard. I mean, he's got to be the second most talked about guy, arguably first, right behind Jason Tatum on this show. He continues to impress, guys. Justin, he told us in the group chat that he was very impressed with what Pritchard was able to bring off the bench, the energy, the impact he had with really his 3-point shot not falling tonight, guys. Obviously, we saw that sidestep 3 in front of the Warriors bench there in that fourth quarter. That was just, I mean, that was the nail in the coffin, obviously up 30, but I mean, that was just, that was tough. But guys, obviously we talked about Pritchard, and this award kind of feels like it's a little tailored to Peyton Pritchard because he has been the energy guy for the Celtics off the bench this year. And, Brendan, obviously you alluded to, playing around with the starting lineup. However, right now we got Pritchard off the bench, and just how big was Pritchard off the bench tonight for the Celtics?
Obviously, it was a little weird not seeing him shoot as many threes, but, I think once in a while you can't really rely on that one little trick in your book. But I think tonight, it just was, Peyton Pritchard wants to play more. And I think he wants to get more of a better role with the team. But, I still think that, the way we have him right now is reasonable to keep him at. But yeah, I mean, he didn't disappoint at all. There hasn't been one game this year that Peyton Pritchard has not disappointed me. Every game I've seen him play this year, he's been the talk of the town. So I just think tonight, another one of the books for him. And then obviously, there hasn't been a game this year, like I've talked about before, with him without making a 3 in the game. So, obviously his threes are much needed for sure.
Peyton Pritchard's development this year has really been something to watch because it's not only the scoring, it is the playmaking from Pritchard as well. And it is the defensive side of things. And really the conversation with Pritchard too on the Celtics team is when the rest of the Celtics team isn't bringing it, Peyton Pritchard is. And it's every single night. We did not think Peyton Pritchard would be this player at all, even 2 seasons ago. And yet now Peyton Pritchard is arguably one of the more important Celtics in the entire rotation because of, number one, what he brings off the bench. But number two, if there were anybody else to go down, he is that next man up, as Franco was talking about. Peyton Pritchard, he is there off the bench in order to really fill those minutes from anybody who goes out of the lineup. Even if we had a big go out of the lineup, Peyton Pritchard is out there going, let me grab those offensive rebounds for you. Let me grab those defensive rebounds for you out there. Pritchard, every time in film breakdown, what always is passed over is Peyton Pritchard, he's always in the mix for rebounds. He's always making that extra effort on the floor wherever it is. And really Peyton Pritchard tonight, he was doing that again throughout really this entire game. And that's what he brings every single game. And the efficiency too from Peyton Pritchard, yeah, you have the 3 line, 2 of 6, but inside the arc, he's 3 of 4. And we've seen games this season where we've come in here and went, oh yeah, he took 12 shots on the game and 11 of them were from 3, or 10 of them were from 3. Yet tonight it's a little bit more balanced for Peyton Pritchard, and that's really where he needs to go in order to be a more elite guard in the league, is balancing out his game, not just relying so much on the 3 ball, but also relying on scoring down low and, of course, playmaking for others as well. And Peyton Pritchard, this is what, year number 5 for Peyton Pritchard, which is just crazy to think about. It's a half decade already with Peyton Pritchard on the roster, but even in year 5, there's still development to be had with P. And at this point in time, I think later on in the season, could we see Peyton Pritchard get even better from where he was to start the year, and even going into next year better than that? I mean, the sky is the limit for Peyton Pritchard at this point in time, because we do forget how young he is with how experienced he already is in the NBA, and of course just the role he plays on this Celtics team, and last year on the Celtics championship team. This is the bargain player for the Boston Celtics. His contract, you just cannot believe the type of money Peyton Pritchard is playing. He's going to have that Scottie Pippen kind of documentary moment one day going, yeah, I won all these championships with the Boston Celtics, but I was almost making the league minimum at the time. And we all know he's much, much better of a player than that. And it really came out tonight in his 14-point performance. And I have no rift with Justin's flowers tonight at all. This is we're beating the narrative. We're beating the narrative out here. That's what we do. We beat the narrative.
That's a Justin-driven narrative.
we have to beat the narrative. It was one time. It was, you gave it to Keita over. It was a. But can we clear the air here? Justin gave his flowers to Keita in the Minnesota game over Derek White, who had a 26-point night. And I was just not having it. And since then it's been a narrative this whole time.
Sometimes you just gotta do what you gotta do. That's all it is.
Justin, he's been on point though this month, and I apologize too. I did a film breakdown on Luke Cornett's game from last game. Everybody go check that out on our YouTube. Did a film breakdown on Luke Cornett's game because we didn't bring up Justin's Flowers after last game. We were so petrified with what happened at the end of the game. Totally glossed over the Flowers. Luke Cornett 100% deserved them. So again, we're beating the narrative here. We gave him out in the play breakdown, of course, special play breakdown. Everybody go check that out on YouTube. It's about Luke Cornett and Justin's Flowers, of course. But tonight, I certainly agree with the decision that Justin made. And of course, didn't he say in the group chat this was one of Peyton Pritchard's best games as a Celtic? Am I mistaken?
Yeah.
Or this season? Might have been this season. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
But anyway, this season has been the best season for Peyton Pritchard as a Celtic. So
Yes.
either
Yeah,
one.
100%. And you just reminded me of that Shaq meme. I'm sorry, I wasn't familiar with your game. But Peyton Pritchard was on the going back off of what you were saying 2 years ago. Peyton Pritchard was on the trade block, as we bring up. He was behind my boy Brogdon before that trade happened. He was almost fighting for his position, and props to Brad Stevens for getting him on a contract extension this offseason, because imagine how much he could be making if he was producing at that level last year when he received that extension. I think that we got him for dimes on the dollar compared to what he's been able to produce for us. $5 million per year, and I think we have him for 2 or 3 more years after this. And that is a deal that is only going to look better and better as time goes on. The spark plug mentality that he has brought to this team, being able to fill any position that the Celtics have really needed position, being able to be effective in the defensive end is an addition and a luxury that we weren't expecting to get out of him. But it's just a testament to the amount of work that he's put in over the few years to really work his way up to the top, because when he was drafted, he was probably around I think he was the 3rd or 4th point guard on the Celtics depth chart at the time, because I think we still had Carson Edwards or Brad Wanamaker. I'm getting the years confused on my backup point guards. But still had to work his way through that, and he has found a way to contribute. Tonight, he was able to match up very well against the Golden State Warriors, who are a pretty guard-heavy team, and it was something that he was able to take over. When the Celtics have a 20-point lead, it's Peyton Pritchard time. It's him being able to control the second unit, him being able to give the players, our stars, the rest that they deserve and the rest that they need, especially after playing a challenging first half, and just being able to almost put the team on cruise control throughout the rest of the game, being able to finish off strong, being able to continue to make shots up until the final minute of a game where you have the game won by the third. It's something that really has helped this team carry forward throughout these rough patches. And once the consistency begins to build for the Boston Celtics, I think that we'll start to see more scoring performances like we have been from Peyton Pritchard. When the Celtics are winning, Peyton Pritchard scoring, and when he's contributing on the other end of the floor, we're getting a lot more than we bargained for, and all flowers go to Peyton Pritchard.
Yeah, I mean, what makes Peyton Pritchard so special, really, on this team is that contract, like you just said. I mean, you can go around the NBA and try to find me a player making Peyton Pritchard's money that, can contribute at the level of Peyton Pritchard. There's really not a lot of guys. I mean, if anybody who's making as little money as Pritchard is making, and it can perform the way he can perform. And it kind of reminds me of when Brad Stevens offered and gave Robert Williams that big contract, or that not big contract, but gave Robert Williams that extension right before he broke out. And it's a shame, obviously, injuries kind of derailed Robert Williams's career. But really, at that time when Robert Williams was making that Defensive Player of the Year campaign in 2021, 2022, and then followed it up in 2022, 2023, the value on his contract really was what made him so special alongside his defensive impact. But when you look at Peyton Pritchard, guys, I mean, Franco, you're so right. I mean, his work ethic is truly impressive, and his ability to contribute in different aspects of the game. There's going to be a lot of nights where you don't need 20 points out of Peyton Pritchard, but what you do need is that energy, right? And we've seen him so many times on his 2024 campaign in the title, making those big time plays on the offensive end with the rebounds and the assists and the steals and the energy plays at the end of quarters and those momentum shifts of him hitting those shots. So he really is the ultimate Swiss Army knife for the Celtics because he can do so much for them. He can plug and play in so many different spots. And I'm very, very impressed with what he's been able to do for them this year. And especially due to the fact that he does fall victim to my 6'1" and under guards and, or really 6'2" and under guards.
I don't like that take.
Unfortunately, I stand true on my theory. Tonight I agree with Justin's Flowers. He did a great job at contributing and really did a great job of controlling that second unit, which is so crucial, guys, when you look at Peyton Pritchard.
Yeah, Peyton Pritchard, you really mentioned it with that second unit just now, is if we didn't have Peyton Pritchard off the bench with his talent and his contract, I mean, it would be getting a little thin there. It's like, Al Horford, 6th man of the year, Luke Cornett, 6th man of the year, Kada, 6th man of the year, Hauser. Quite honestly, we talked about Hauser. I don't want to go into a whole Hauser tangent right now, but seeing him out there every single night is getting a little bit confusing from the standpoint of at times he's just completely unplayable. But in terms of us talking about Peyton Pritchard, if he wasn't there off the bench for the Boston Celtics, Peyton Pritchard, that's why he's one of the more important Celtics players. You think about everybody else on the roster. Yeah, Holiday's important. White's important. Of course, the two J's are important. Kristaps Porzingis. But if you didn't have Pritchard, I'm really concerned about the depth of this team entirely. And really over this last stretch, even if you think about December, how many more games in December would the Celtics have lost if Peyton Pritchard wasn't doing what he did in December? Because that was really his best month of the entire season. And some games you walked out going, Peyton Pritchard was our best player tonight. He just was. And it's amazing to say that on this championship squad because everybody else who resides on the team, their talent is known amongst the rest of the league. Their talent's been seen on other teams before, whether it's Porzingis, White, or Holiday. And yet Peyton Pritchard, the homegrown star with the Celtics, and yeah, let's call him a star because that's what he's been this entire season long. He's potentially going to win 6th man of the year. I mean, he's really been the one carrying the weight for this Boston Celtics team at times. And Rob, too, you mentioned that energy factor. The Celtics need his energy at this point in time because I think if you don't have Peyton Pritchard on the roster, where's that energy coming from consistently? I don't really see it out there from any other player on a consistent basis. You'll see it from time to time, of course, but Peyton Pritchard is always that consistent energy presence, and you always know what you're going to get out of him. And that's really what makes I shouldn't say great basketball player, but a really good basketball player is a player you can rely on consistently to bring you something to the floor. He brings you something. It's not a player that Peyton Pritchard's not a player that you're plugging and playing and going, I don't know what I'm going to get out of him tonight. I don't know what he's going to do specially tonight. Peyton Pritchard, he's going to come into the game, give his effort on both ends of the floor, shoot with confidence, and do everything he can to win the game for his own team. So Peyton Pritchard tonight, he certainly did that in his performance. And we've seen it a lot this season. And really Justin's Flowers, it's becoming kind of the Pritchard Flowers or the Cornett Flowers because those are the two players who are always taking them over.
Now, guys, obviously we talk and we look at the Celtics team with a great opportunity ahead of them on this road trip to kind of get just their rhythm back. They had a great start to it tonight. However, how many times in this past month have we said, oh, this is a great start? And then it is followed up by a real stinker. Now they play the Los Angeles Clippers Wednesday in their first matchup in the Intuit Dome, right? I'm excited for it. The Intuit Dome seems pretty cool. So I'm excited to see how it looks. I haven't really watched many Clippers games. I won't lie. This season, I've kind of checked in on them and what James Harden.
I'm looking at the roster right now.
Yeah, I mean, specifically what James Harden's been able to do and keep them afloat and really within the playoff mix. They're a top 5 seed in the West right now behind James Harden and with 24 points. I mean, he's been playing a very, very good basketball. They got Kawhi Leonard back now, guys. So this is a Clippers team, right, that is very much so, if you ask me, they're very much so in the mix right now in a Western Conference that is really, I'm sorry, it's still anybody's game. out there in the West. We saw, obviously, everyone thought it was going to be the Nuggets or the Thunder last year. Guess what? Dallas came out. They got hot. So you look at LA, they're still very much so in the mix, and they're a very good team. And you look at the Celtics team, they are still kind of the lead dogs out east. Obviously, the lingering Cleveland Cavaliers right now, who are playing some great basketball. But this is a matchup where you talk about you can pull something from. Absolutely. A Kawhi Leonard and James Harden matchup versus Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum guys in the Intuit Dome in LA. Boston looking to make to get on a run here. What are you looking for specifically out of the Celtics team in this Clippers game that, it could be a tell to the Celtics trending in a better direction here?
Definitely got to make sure that, since Kawhi Leonard's been back, he's been kind of slowly trying to heat up, obviously. Take advantage of him and, try and guard him as best as you can. That's going to be probably Brown's job. And so I think he can probably do that. And then obviously you got to stop James Harden's consistency too, because, any given night that he's on there, he's just going to have the ball in his hand, looking to shoot a three. So that's going to have to come from the backcourt as well. White and Holiday have to do a better job teaming up with them on that. But yeah, I'm excited for this matchup though. It's going to be good to have, Kawhi kind of getting back into his routine. So it'll be interesting for that too. So it'll be good.
The Western Conference is very interesting right now as I'm going over the standings. The Clippers and Lakers right now are holding the 5 and 6 spots, and it's really a very much more tight-knit race in the playoffs over there. Even getting the 10 spot for the NBA play-in tournament right now for the Western Conference is looking like a very tall task. But looking at the Clippers, they're still a team that has had a few disfigurements from their team. Obviously, they faced injury, but they're still a very well-developed team. They added Derek Jones Jr., and a name that I've been seeing that's been contributing for them has been Norman Powell. He's been able to step up, been kind of their Derek White-esque player over there. He's been really been able to light it up. So this is definitely a team that matches up well with the Boston Celtics, and it's going to be a fun matchup. So I was actually favoring that to be our NBA playoff, NBA championship last year. I thought it was going to be Clippers Celtics, as did most other people, but I think the Celtics just need to, like we've said in almost every single win after the Celtics, or every single time the Celtics win, we say this, and then sometimes, hopefully not this time, it gets answered with the loss, is just transfer over this energy that you have. Being able to maintain this, especially on a West Coast trip, is going to be imperative, especially going into later games. They're going to be playing at 10 o'clock the next few nights. They're going to, I don't know how jet lagged they're going to be. I think they've probably adjusted to it by now, but it's still a transition within itself. So being able to bring the energy, being able to guard Harden, I think that our point guard should have a great performance. And I also would expect either Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown to really have a peak performance in one of these games, especially against aged LeBron or aged Kawhi, who have been dealing with, well, LeBron hasn't dealt with injuries, but Kawhi has been dealing with injuries for the first half of the season, starting to slowly get back into the process of things. So be able to take advantage of their depth, be able to keep the ball moving, being able to find that consistency, find that flow, being able to keep your guys in check. And I think these are going to be games to expect more of a start to finish type of win, other than the past few times where we've said that a win would just be nice in general. And I think it won't be as wire to wire as we expected, especially I don't expect the Celtics to go in and have a performance like they did tonight against the Clippers or Lakers. I think it will be a little bit more tight-knit of a game, won't be as wire to wire as it was tonight. So I'm just really looking forward to how they can finish off this Western Coast trip, because if they can come back 4-0 or at minimum 3-1, it's a really big step for this team in the right position, and being able to solidify themselves as that contender and really get rid of that question from the rest of the NBA on if the Celtics are just taking it easy or have the Celtics been quote unquote figured out, which we went over earlier on in the show. The espionage of talent on this team almost makes them impossible to figure out because there's still looks that this team can put out there that we haven't even seen yet as we've covered this team for the past 2 years.
Well, I completely agree with you, Franco, in terms of transferring the energy over from tonight to that game in Los Angeles. And I think this is going to be a pretty big game for the Boston Celtics, considering if you win this one, you're not leaving LA. You're not leaving LA. You're going to be in LA a little bit for the Clippers and Lakers game, which, of course, I think this is a good time of year actually to be on the West Coast for the Boston Celtics because it's a lot warmer in LA right now. It's a lot warmer in San Francisco. It's a lot warmer in Dallas right now. Well, actually, Dallas. A little cold in Dallas right now, but than it is in Boston. And really staying in Los Angeles for a couple days could be good for the Boston Celtics. Now, we've seen for past teams, whether the Celtics or not, staying in LA, staying in Miami, not always the best of things. You got a lot of things going on in those two cities that teams like to get involved in, but really staying in the warm weather is going to be good for the Boston Celtics, I believe, especially if you win this first game against the LA Clippers and then you have a night off, then you go play the Lakers. That's just a couple nights where you get to spend the night in the same city if you're the Boston Celtics. So that'll be big from that standpoint, but you also have to be physical in this game if you're the Boston Celtics, and you have to get after it on the defensive end of the floor because the Clippers, you think about the Clippers, what we did to them earlier this season, the Clippers, we completely blew out on the Garden floor. There's going to be extra motivation behind the Clippers to come out and punch the Celtics in the mouth. And what the Celtics are going to have to do is stay physical and stay locked in on the defensive end of the floor because the Clippers do have a lot of guys who can go out there and score the ball. We've been mentioning them a lot here already. Kawhi Leonard, Norman Powell, James Harden. Even think about Kevin Porter Jr. on that team. There are a lot of players who can really fill it up for the Los Angeles Clippers. So if you're the Celtics, you have to come out and give a good defensive performance. But also looking at the Clippers too, what the Celtics were able to do against the Clippers in their last matchup is really contain all of those shooters and those wings for the Los Angeles Clippers. Zubac was a huge factor in that game between the Celtics and Clippers back in November, and he got his points. And you don't want that to happen if you're the Boston Celtics again, because this time around, the wings of the Clippers at home could be much more of a force. They could hit more of their shots, and ultimately that Zubac performance, if it goes and pops off the same way, could be a lot more impactful in the Clippers winning. And in that game, too, the Celtics, they dropped 51 points in the second quarter in that game. And I don't know if you guys can hear, but Meow Meow's in the room with me right now.
Talk quickly.
But yeah, we got to bring out the cat. Don't bring out that cat.
Nope, it's done.
No, we're done with that. Think of nightmares. But anyway, the Clippers, we reached the top of the mountain or the over the hill with the Clippers, or surpassed the hill with the Clippers when that game played out in November, late November, by scoring 51 points in the second quarter. I don't know if you're going to have another quarter like that if you're the Boston Celtics in this particular matchup. So it really highlights the fact the Celtics have to get after it on the defensive end of the floor, and also just really continuing their offensive game from what we saw tonight, just attacking aggressively downhill inside the paint. That's always going to be the game plan for the Boston Celtics, is to keep going downhill, keep finding those easy buckets, and keep creating options for yourself if you're the ball handler or anybody else on the floor. So the Celtics, they're just going to have to play their game. We've been talking about that a lot with this Boston Celtics squad as of late. It's just about playing their game and playing it to the highest extent we know what they're capable, how they're capable of doing it. So that LA game to start out, the Clippers, and then you have the Lakers afterwards. I think that first one's going to be pretty big because you do not want to drop that one. It's going to be up and we're back to 500 every other.
Right.
And literally every other game is a loss or a win. And then you're going into the Laker game, which is going to be a more hyped game, and you're playing in the same city. So if you win that first game, you're playing in the same city. It's going to be a nice little stretch there where the Celtics get to sleep in the same bed and then go and play against the Los Angeles Lakers in a bigger matchup. So, and if you do that, if you win both of those games, now you're on a 3-game winning streak. Now you've won 4 out of the last 5. You're the Celtics, and the only one you lost is one you fumbled down the stretch. So we're really going to be talking about the Celtics in a lot better light if they go out and really win these next 2 games in LA. But it all starts with that Clippers game, of course.
Defense, 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 defense. They need to play defense. Like literally, they need to play. They need defense. If this team can come out and look active on defense, I don't care. I do not care what the offensive floor consists of for the Boston Celtics. I do not care. If you score 93 points, make sure the other team scores 92. Defense, defense, defense. They need to lock down on defense. It is, especially with their offensive tendencies to shoot a lot of threes, that only works if you are playing defense. Tonight, they did that. Orlando, they did that. They had a little hiccup there. The defense wasn't terrible against Atlanta. Their execution was really just what screwed them over. But if this team, I need to see them whole trip, not just LA. Obviously, against the Clippers is the first time I'm going to be able to kind of, talk about it. But I want to see them really excel. Lock in this West Coast trip on playing defense. Make that an emphasis of your game plan. I really want to see it out of them. I know they can do it. Just a season ago, they were the best defensive team in the NBA, right? This team can do it. They have the personnel. They have the intangibles to be a great defensive team. They haven't been since really November, and I really, really want to see it out of them because, again, this team is dangerous when they're playing defense. So I'm going to harp on the defensive efforts on the West Coast trip. I don't know about you guys, but I get major bad vibes when we're talking about the Celtics getting their season back on track with a West Coast road trip because of what happened in 2019. Like, is this not like, I'm sorry, but I'm getting like some PTSD. Like, oh, do you remember 2019 where the Celtics they go on a West Coast trip and it's like they can't figure it out and they play the Golden State Warriors on the road in Golden State and they blow them out by like 40. We're sitting here thinking, oh yeah, Kyrie and Hayward, they're back. We're back. They like each other. So I'm just getting some PTSD right now. That's all.
Freshen up the script, NBA.
I will say though, we didn't see the DeMarcus Cousins versus Aaron Baines tonight, and we didn't see the.
Yeah, we did not see that.
That was a much different circumstance, I feel like, because that was in March. I will say that was in March of that season, so that was a really late. Like, okay, this team really has turned around. Like we're missing out on the days I'm not actually do it. And the Warriors, it's like the script is flipped actually a little bit. I will say between the two teams is. Now the Celtics are really that juggernaut of a squad, and the Warriors are really that teetering team. At that time, it was, the Celtics are the teetering team, and the Warriors are the juggernaut. So I would say there's some similarities in terms of, we go on the West Coast road trip, beat the Warriors, but I think this one's a lot different from the standpoint of just where the two teams are and just where we are in the schedule too. We're still in January. That game was in March. It felt like it was like, we're really running out of time for the Celtics team to do something here. And they, of course, never really were able to get it together. But I have a lot more belief in this Celtics team, particularly because I think we all know we don't have a Kyrie Irving in the locker room right now.
Well, and
talking about Peyton Pritchard, he's not allowing that to happen. I
will say though, like, from a matchup standpoint, because I guess it really didn't allude to the specific matchup. I love watching Clippers Celtics. I really do. Something about it feels right. I've been ever since that 2019-2020 season, pre-lockdown, that COVID year went to the bubble. I've been begging for a Celtics Clippers NBA Finals. It just feels right when they had Kawhi and PG. It felt like we were kind of looking into the future of what Brown and Tatum could have been. So it's a shame that never worked out because I really was a fan. I mean, those matchups, you guys remember that game in LA where Tatum drops PG, he knocks down that shot.
Such a good game that we lost. Oh, it's one of those games where it's like,
we got him back and then we go home and Tatum puts up 40 in another overtime. It just feels like every time the Clippers and the Celtics, they match up. I guess not recently, but it's always a good game. So I don't know about you guys, but I'm really excited for Wednesday night and Thursday night, but I'm very excited.
Last year's championship poster, if it was Clippers Celtics, would look so cool. I think that would have just been like one of the most star-studded like posters.
Right,
that you
it just feels right.
Westbrook versus Holiday, Harden versus Derek White, Jaylen Brown versus Paul George, Kyrie or Kawhi Leonard versus Jason Tatum, and then Kristaps Porzingis against Zubac, but that kind of ruined.
Or Tice last year, no?
Tice. Yes. So again, I'm very excited. Very, very excited. I think it's going to be a great game. And again, it's another opportunity, guys, for the Celtics to kind of just get back on track. And we're going to be a broken record. Hopefully, we're going to come in here, right? And you know what? I'm going to guarantee something real quick. I'm sorry, Justin's not here, but I'm going to guarantee something real quick.
I'm hiding.
I guarantee the Boston Celtics go into LA and they complete the Laker Clipper sweep. I'm going to guarantee that live on air here. I'm going to do that. The Celtics, Justin, you're not here. You're sick. I got you. The Celtics are going to do that. So there's my guarantee. There's my guarantee.
When that clip that was hidden. So,
but again, guys, so the Celtics and the Clippers, they're going to be back in action Wednesday night, guys. Now that's going to be a really late game. This whole couple of these next games are going to be late here. 10:30 start time for the Celtics and Clippers. That is not nationally broadcast. You can catch it on NBC Sports Austin. But guys, guess what? We are going to be live after the final buzzer sounds. We will be here, kicking it live, ready to go. A little Celtics Talk Weekly late night. We did it against Denver. We've done it before, and it's a fun time. So after the final buzzer sound, guys, comes right back here to Celtics Talk Weekly YouTube channel, and we will have you covered for Celtics Talk Weekly Postgame Live. Before I close out the show, guys, I'm going to say something. If you're not already subscribed, hit that subscribe button. Turn on post notifications so you get directly alerted when we go live for postgame show. And don't forget, click that like button. Now, I've heard there's rumors now on YouTube where if you mention the like button in a video, it pops up and flashes for you. So I'm going to say it. Hit that like button, guys. We really do appreciate the support we've been getting on the postgame show. They've been a lot of fun. But, guys, you know what time it is. Cue that music because it is a win and it feels good. And per usual. Finally. Oh. Feels good. Go Celtics, guys. See you in the next one.